I'm Corbett Wall with DB Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, January the 26th, brought to you in part by the new Nasalgen. Bovalis Nasalgen 3 PMH is the first and only intranasal vaccine with both viral and bacterial pneumonia protection to effectively protect cattle against IBR, BRSV, PI3, Pasteurella multicida, and Mannheimia homiletica. Easy for me to say. In one dose. For more information, go to unmatchedprotection.com. Mud bog is what our fed cattle market is going through right now, and if you guys have ever been to a good mud bog, and I haven't been to one since I was a kid, but they take those hot rods and they run them through the mud course, and if you remember, right before the end of it is the deepest point, and they call that the soupy pit. Well, that's where we're at right now, is in the soupy pit. We're relatively warm compared to what it's been eastern Nebraska and western Iowa for the most part, and those cattle are bogging deep in mud. I tell you what, it is tough on them, and it's supposed to chill down again here next week, so that'll give them some firm footing. It's actually better to feed cattle this time of year whenever it stays in the 20s. That way the cattle have firm footing to walk around on. The mud doesn't collect on them quite as bad as it does when it's a little bit warmer out there. But man, these cattle got a lot of mud on them. The packers really don't want them, but they need them. And of course they're going to penalize them on price. We've seen some cattle already sell, some heavy mud cattle, a lot of tag on them, selling $2 to $3 lower than last week's market. On a direct basis, cash live price. So you know the Southern Plains may finally sell cattle at par or higher than the Northern Plains. Southern Plains cattle are not muddy. We did get a little bit of snow down there finally to calm the dust down a little bit, but it's not going to be muddy at all. And they shouldn't have to take that penalty from the market because of muddy cattle. And if they will stay hooked, they should be able to get as high or higher than the Northern Plains, because that's mostly what they're selling on a live basis, is these muddy cattle that they can penalize quite a bit. But your fed beef output so far this year is down about 8% compared to last year at this time, which we haven't gone very far in this year, I realize. But combining the lower slaughter, mostly because of the way that the holidays fell during Christmas and New Year's there, and the lighter weights that these storms and the mud and everything has sucked down, we're down about 8%, which is significant. We're likely going to come back on that a little bit here as we go forward the next few weeks. But you know, the guys that hang out the latest to sell cattle are nearly always going to get a better price than those that sell early to midweek. But frankly, and I'm up here in the Northern Plains right now, these guys are sick of these cattle. The guys that are feeding them are sick of these fat cattle that's been bogging around in this mud and got all this mud tag on them, and they're just wanting rid of them, not wanting to keep them and have to go through another storm with them. But we'll see what happens as we go on through this week. Look at your board. Your February live cattle futures were down a quarter at 157.60. That's still a big premium to last week's weighted average on live steers, which was just 155.32. April fats up 25 cents at 161.55. Your back months were all up from 12 cents to 35. Fat cattle market wants to get better, at least in the futures. January feeder cattle up 45 cents at 179.40. March was up 15 at 183.75. And as you go on through the rest of the traded months that are listed, your prices get progressively higher all the way through November of 23, which is sitting at 212.35 on Wednesday's close. But your back months on feeder cattle were down 5 cents to up 70 cents. March corn was down 2 1/4 cents a bushel on Wednesday at 674 3/4. March beans up 14 cents at 1502 1/2. Fat cattle trade, we started to see a little bit more trade, and like I said, it's mostly on those cattle that's carrying a lot of tag, and your packers can get them a significant discount, and they're more than happy to go in there and take those up. But only bidding $2 to $3 less than what last week's market was, and most guys aren't taking it. Just the ones that got the muddiest cattle and are the most ready to get rid of them. Iowa sold about 900 head confirmed. I heard that there's more cattle that sold than that, but the packers weren't in a hurry to get that information in to where we can see it. But confirmed sales on 900 head, all at 152. I think the lowest we had in Iowa was 155 last week. But these cattle are carrying a lot of mud. Dressing percentage on them is going to be 60% at best. Nebraska just about 100 head at 153. Kansas and Texas haven't traded a hoof yet, and they're going to wait and see if they can't erase the premium that the Northern Plains has been selling compared to them for months and months and months. At the fat cattle sale here in Mitchell, South Dakota on Wednesday, they sold a load of drug-free steers at 158.10 through the ring. That might be a good way to sell some of these cattle, guys. Box beef cutout values were lower. Again, it's seasonal declines, but you would think that it would bounce back and forth once in a while, but just continue lower. Choice cuts down 136 on Wednesday afternoon at 268.28. Selects down 59 cents at 251.80. Your slaughter up through the first 3 days of this week, 378,000. That's 5,000 more than last week. 19,000 more than the same week a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. Livestock Risk Services is Dakota Moss, headquartered right there at the Exchange Building at the Oklahoma National Stockyards in Oklahoma City. They're your LRP specialist. Him and his agents that are all around the area there. But you guys need to be looking at that. If you're going to turn some cattle out this spring, and I know a lot of you are, you've got to get some LRPs on them. Look at the strike prices out there. They're very impressive. Don't forget the government's going to kick in from 35 to 55% of that premium and help you pay for that. You also want to look at the unborn calves that you've got due later this spring and see what you can get. Lock in a price for them. It's unbelievable how high you can do that, but got to do that, go to Livestock Risk Services. Talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Wednesday, sitting at 177.99. That was up 166 with some big premier Northern Plains sales on Wednesday. It actually surpassed the lagging CME cash feeder cattle index. It's 1 to 2 days behind there, but past it, and it's going back up. But it's amazing how lighter numbers of feeder cattle cause the market to go up. Natural supply and demand. Lighter numbers of available fed cattle does not necessarily mean the price goes up, because so many feeders have already promised them all their cattle. So they just have your packers just have a very small percentage of the cattle that they need to go out and buy on the cash market. Coming to you from Mitchell, South Dakota. Got a big sale at Mitchell Livestock Marketing on Thursday, about 8,000 head there. Jared Herman there, my friend, and several of the guys around here. It's good to see them and catch up with them. Going to be there at the sale and maybe auctioneer a turn or two to help those guys get all those cattle sold. And then later on Thursday here, I will be going to Ralph's Feed Store in Freeman, South Dakota. And they got the beef day going on over there, and I'm scheduled to speak right after dinner if I can keep the people awake. Let's talk about your big sales on Wednesday, and they were not very big in the Southern Plains anymore. These cattle have shut off in the Southern Plains. Yes, it has some to do with a little skiff of wintry weather that we saw go through the Southern Plains, which we're not as used to down there as the Northern Plains guys, and they just would rather not deal with it if they don't have to. But we sold so many cattle, late last year and early this year that there's just not very many cattle out there, guys. OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, only had 3,100 head. Sold them all on Wednesday. Feeder steers were $1 to $4 higher. Feeder heifers were fully steady and light test. calves were not even enough calves really to get a market test on them. Very, very light test of calves in El Reno, Oklahoma. Winter Livestock, Dodge City, Kansas sold 1,000 head. I tell you what, the runs are just light, guys. You look everywhere in the Southern Plains, they're extremely light. And the market was not well tested on feeders. But I tell you what, I projected that before it's over, these cows will get as high as $1.30. And then some places in the southeast, I talked to a friend of mine, Loosedale, Mississippi. They sold Packer cows as high as $98.50 through the ring there, guys. Your cows in Dodge City, Kansas were $8 higher than last week, up to $96 on the top of high dressing cows. Bulls were $5 higher, up to $110 on your big, heavy muscled, high dressing bulls. Talk about some sales that did have some significant receipts. Your Zoetis stick-out sale of the day was Bassett Livestock Auction in Bassett, Nebraska. 6,200 head. And you look at this automated market report through Cattle Market Central, you see that the market was fairly uneven, is what it was called by Federal State Market News. Steers were mostly higher and heifers mostly lower, but my gosh, look at the best tested weights of these steers. 2,317 head of 6-weight steer calves through Bassett, Nebraska. All of them together averaged 647 pounds with a weighted average price of $205.18. 1,148 head of the 7-weight steer calves in Bassett averaged 740 pounds, weighted average $187.04. Look at some heifers. 674 head of 5-weight heifer calves in Bassett, Nebraska had an average weight of 561, with all of those selling at a weighted average price of $190.13. My goodness. 667 head of 6-weight heifer calves averaged 658, weighted average price on them $178.41. They did sell one load of fancy replacement quality heifers there, sold for replacement. 71 head of them weighed 707 pounds and bring $188. Give you some individual quotes around. How about Sidney, Montana Livestock Market Center sold a big load, 100 head of 679 pound steer calves, bring $2.28 a pound. My good friends Kenny and Mary Grainer that live up in North Dakota sold their cattle, or a portion of their cattle, on Wednesday at Kist Livestock in Mandan, North Dakota. We do not get quotes from them, and I don't know why. I would like to get hooked up with Kist and start getting their market reported in here automatically, like we have over 250 sale barns already doing. But the Grainers sold a load, 68 head of 834 pound steer calves at $179.50. How about Equity Cooperative in Waukon, Iowa? 69 steers weighed 887 at $180. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Wednesday, in your Mackerson No BS top quote for the day, come out of Stockman's Livestock Market, their feeder sale there in Yankton, South Dakota, which is just south of where I'm giving you this report from. They sell 298 head of steers, weighed 1,030 pounds at $175. That's all you could get for an 800 pound load a week and a half ago, guys. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.